Let's begin with the infrastructure program. It sort of strikes me, Simon Banks, by the type of criticism Labor is levelling, that this is not something they can find too much issue with just yet. They're saying they should have done it earlier. We're not sure how much money it is.
Labor's been calling for the government to bring forward some of its infrastructure spend.
And the government's been working with the states for a while.
Well, the government's been previously saying that they didn't think it was necessary and that they didn't need to stimulate the economy.
But they did say a while ago they were sitting down with the states and they asked them to bring forward projects. That's been in train for a while.
But they also said they weren't going to stimulate the economy. I think we also need to put this amount of stimulus in context. This is the equivalent of, let's say, for example, you had a salary of $100,000 a year. This is about $1 extra a week.
Goes with a few other things, though.
No, that's the extent of this.
No, what I'm saying is tax cuts, rate cuts.
Oh, but the tax cuts came before the election when the economy was a strong economy.
I'm just saying what's washing through
what's
washing through the economy right now, if you take it as a package, the tax cuts, the infrastructure, the rate cuts that have come through.
Yeah, and as we've seen with the rate cuts and the tax cuts, they really haven't lifted the economy very much, have they?
Kerry, I'm doing my best. I can't convince Simon. Where do you sit
You're
on
never going to convince
Simon,
Tom.
From the PM, what did you make of this announcement?
Well, I actually thought that the PM made a lot of sense. I saw him on television this morning talking about this, and in spite of Simon's best attempts, you are correct, Tom. The PM had said that they sat down very close to just after the election to sit down with the states, and he made the point that it was with the premiers and chief ministers of all the states. It wasn't done on political lines, to talk to them about the infrastructure spend that they wanted brought forward to help stimulate their economies and to provide the biggest bang for the buck. So I am very delighted that they clearly were listening to me, because if you remember last week, Tom, I said some of this money they needed to spend needed to go to regional areas, and that's what they're doing. They're putting it into some of those regional areas. And Simon's being a little disingenuous, yes, because there have been tax cuts, which are taking a little longer to come through. But I suspect that we'll see some pretty good retail figures after Christmas, which we usually do. So I think that'll help. But the other thing I think which will help will be the very big drought package. You know, the drought package is billions of dollars, and that will actually help some of the farmers, but it'll also help some of those businesses in those small country towns. So I think that the government is doing a measured response. You will forgive me, I very rarely use a line which the government uses, but I did actually think the Prime Minister got it right this morning when he said you're probably better off having sensible, planned infrastructure spending, tax cuts, and measures in relation to the drought and, for example, what they'll do on aged care, rather than just splashing it out on getting people perhaps to buy a new TV. Which was
I still remember getting a Rudd check. It was a real thrill back then, I can tell you.
You mean, Kerry, that stimulus that was in fact designed by the Treasury, by the official advice of our experts, that actually helped save about 200,000 jobs in the Australian
economy. It was a very different time, though, wasn't it?
Stopped us from going into recession. You mean that stimulus, Kerry, that was lauded around the world by the World Bank and others?
All right, but that
a model for how they're doing it. Yeah.
But we're not facing the same circumstances.
No, the answer is we're not. No, the answer is we're not. But this is what I find extraordinary about the speech that the Prime Minister's already flagged he's given tonight. That one, he's comparing this, which is pretty modest, you know, it is measured, if you want to use Kerry's words. He's comparing that to the global financial crisis when the globe was literally in recession. We're one of the very few economies that didn't go into recession during that period.
The government obviously criticises Labor for going too far. Put that aside for one moment.
Right.
There was a big bit of stimulus for a situation of massive turmoil. We're not facing that now. We're sort of spluttering along.
So the whole point is that why is he comparing the two events when they're clearly very different?
Well, he's saying...
Why is he actually frightening people by telling you that we need to stimulus, but not like the global financial crisis when we're not in a global financial crisis?
Well, he's just saying that, it's a smaller effort is required right now, a bit of a calmer one compared to back then.
Right, now all he's doing is engaging in the usual Liberal GFC denial that would have seen 200,000 people thrown onto the unemployment scrap heap back in 2008 and 2009. Look, the Prime Minister's got to be better than this. I mean, this was a world-leading stimulus package recognised by economists and experts all around the world. He still wants to go back and fight history. Well, he's just wrong. And then secondly, why scare people about a global recession when we're not even remotely close to that?
How is he scaring people about the global recession?
Because he's saying that we're not doing this like we did during the GFC. Why even bother drawing the comparison when the two are not comparable?
All right, well, as I said, I think it's just he's saying different situations, so we're not in a global recession now.
No. Like he's trying to say, look, I'm virtuous. I'm not splashing cash like Labor did during the GFC.
What did you do with your...
What he's actually saying is that, one, he wouldn't have done it, so he would have put 200,000 Australians on the unemployment scrap heap. And he is actually saying, no, Labor was bad and I'm good. Well, I've got to say, two totally different sets of circumstances.
Right.
I got his response to the first one wrong. And secondly, he's trying to compare the two when they're not comparable. What a stupid thing to do.
So, Simon, you need to then admit that this is an appropriate response for the existing circumstances. And I have yet to hear you say that anything that the coalition has done in relation to stimulating the economy, doing anything about improving conditions in Australia at the moment, is right. So I'm more than happy to take the criticism about what you've said I said about the GFC.
But I want you to hear.
What I want to hear you say, Simon, is that this is an appropriate response.
No, I said Labor had been calling for the government to bring forward infrastructure spending, and the government had done it.
But you're just saying that it's... But you also just said it's only like $1 a week on a $100,000 income, without acknowledging...
It's a very small amount.
Without acknowledging that the impact of this will be substantial over a period of time. You haven't acknowledged that. You never do, Simon.
The equivalent... So you reckon the equivalent of $1 a week is substantial?
I think
for someone earning $100,000 a year. You reckon that changes their spending pattern and behaviour?
I think the impact of what they're doing in relation to increasing or bringing forward the infrastructure payments, what they're doing for the drought, what they're doing in turn, what they've already done in terms of income tax, will be a cumulative effect, which will have a good effect on the economy. But you never seem to want to acknowledge
the infrastructure sort of pulls through a few more jobs in the economy rather than necessarily thinking of it as an amount you spend each week. Anyway, we're getting bogged down in that. I might, you know what? I'm going to do a quick vox pop. What did you do with your cheque back in 2009? Can you remember?
I don't recall.
I bought drums. So there you go. Kerry, do you remember?
You bought what?
I bought drums. We just started. Drums. Upgraded the drum kit. I still remember getting the cheque. So I don't know if that helps productivity of the nation.
I think I spent it on my grandchildren.
Keep their jobs in the retail sector.
Yeah, maybe. I think it kept the neighbours up. Anyway, I do digress.